In connection with the attack on the United States, the Lord told his prophet there would be an attempt to overthrow the country by destroying the Constitution. Joseph Smith predicted that the time would come when the Constitution would hang, as it were, by a thread. And at that time, this people will step forth and save it from the threatened destruction. It is my conviction that the elders of Israel, widely spread over the nation, will at that crucial time successfully rally the righteous of our country and provide the necessary balance of strength to save the institutions of constitutional government. Now is the time for us to get ready.
Welcome to the Nauvoo Legion podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Nauvoo Legion podcast, episode number 2. I want to thank Jorge for coming on. He's from Costa Rica, and he's just going to be sharing his perspective about the church and just kind of what he's seen. And it's just going to be a conversation. I hope it's really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about like Lamanites and the Book of Mormon. We're going to talk about some of the Latin American issues in the church, and then also a little bit about Ensign Peak and some of the finances of the church. That's kind of what Jorge's really interested in. And so, I'm just here to hear. We're just here to kind of hear his perspective, and so it should be pretty interesting conversation. So, I don't know. Just you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jorge? And
Yeah, sure. Well, as you already mentioned, I'm from Costa Rica. I've been a member my whole life. I'm a third generation member. My grandparents, along with my mother, they got baptized together from my mother's side, and from my dad's side, he was the first member of the church. So I was born in the church. I was born, as you said, under the covenant. I have a big tradition of, if you can still say Mormonism, but like my family's been in the church for a long time. My cousins, we all serve a mission. My uncles, they serve a mission. My dad didn't serve a mission, but my mom, she did. And we're 4 siblings and we all serve missions. So it's like a big tradition now in my family. Right now, currently I'm living in China, so I cannot attend church. However, I still consider myself an active member of the church. Even though I'm still, I become like open on social media about some issues the church is facing, and especially how it's affecting the Latin American community, which is a different perspective probably from what you guys experience in the US. So that's also what I want to address tonight.
Okay. How did you end up in China?
So funny enough, I have Chinese ancestry. Like my great grandfather, he was from Guangzhou, China, and actually I started it because of family search, like genealogy. I was doing the whole genealogy for my family on my dad's side. We found out the Chinese part, and there was like a limit, we couldn't find more information. So I was like, okay, let's try to do it. I started to learn Chinese. I started to do like little trips around my country to find out about my Chinese heritage. And then I figured out how to come to China to keep looking for it. So I applied for a scholarship, and I've been here 2 years already. I'm doing like part of genealogy and part of like my own thing, because I'm also studying international trade. So it all actually, you see how close I am to the whole mission, to the whole mission of the church, which is also like, doing the baptism for the dead and everything. That was like how I started it.
Oh yeah, wow, that's really cool, man. Yeah, that's cool. So do you speak Mandarin or Cantonese or?
I do, yeah. I have an HSK4, which is like a C1. However, Chinese is like a never-ending process. So even though I can like have I can have like day-to-day conversations, but it's still like a difficult language to learn. So I'm still like, I'm still struggling, if you can say it like that.
What's it like in comparison to living in like Costa Rica? Have you ever like traveled much to the US?
Yes. I mean, I went to the US first time when I was 6 years old. I visited the Nauvoo temple, which is my favorite temple. I don't know if probably you're familiar with all the LDS symbolisms. I'm a big fan of that. And it was one of the temples that I still remember visiting the outside and being like amazed on the whole architecture. We visited the Mississippi River in that time. We visited the Carthage jail, and we did like a big tour of historical sites of the church. So that was my first time in the US. The second time I went to EFY in Kentucky, uh, where I also visited the Sacred Grove. Like I know most of the places on the eastern part
Hmm.
of the US related to the church. And then when I came back from my mission, it was the first time I went to Utah. So I got to meet all the western part of the church, you know.
Yeah.
I went to This is the place. I've been to Salt Lake. I've been to Provo. I have family living in Provo. Um, and yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of the church history on my own flesh, and I mean, it was such a privilege, and I still cherish it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I went to Nauvoo right after my mission into some like Carthage and Liberty Jail, and man, the Nauvoo Temple, it's a pretty cool sight to see. You know,
It's Yeah,
it's
like the whole. I don't know if you follow these guys, ldssymbols.com. I don't know if you
uh
heard of them. Oh, there is fascinating. They give you like a lot of perspective on how the symbolism reflects of course Jesus, you know, but also like old Christian traditions. I think you will be very interested in that because I've seen your
LDS symbols.
content. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll check it
and
out.
it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
definitely.
Fascinating. I'll try to send you the link after this, but it's really fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be interested to check it out. So, yeah, well let's just get into the kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you about was like Latin America. What's your perspective on the church down there? What concerns do you have like for
Yeah,
the saints and everything?
sure. So I started this little, I can say project or channel. I have an Instagram profile and also I have a TikTok recently, where I wanted to start talking about the main issues I think with Latin America is that we don't get all the information you guys have in the US, you know. So for example, the whole leak of Ensign Peak in 2019, we actually never heard of this, you know. And I heard of it because well, I do speak English and I try to keep myself informed as much as possible. And for example, also the other issue we never got a grasp on really, it was the LGBT policy. They changed in 2015 and then they changed back in 2020 or 2019, something like that. So like my whole life, I've seen a lot of news and information that we don't actually get in Latin America, and and we don't get it because it's not translated. For example, like people might say like, oh, you just need to learn English to get to know like what's going on. But I think like the church should make an effort to translate all the documents we have to the second largest community of the church, which is Latin America. And we're probably in the next couple of years, or probably 5 years, be even larger than the LDS community in the US, you know. So
Yeah,
that's one of the things that's one of the reason I started doing this channel. And um I just started like literally just making small videos about how the church finances can be problematic for our community in Latin America, and also how the transparency might not be what the members actually deserve. Because
yeah,
as you might know, like the last time the church actually gave like a full transparent report was in 1959. And I mean after that we never got a real one, you know. We get like this um I think annual reports of what the church is doing, and they give you like a lot of, sorry if I say it like that, but I think it's a lot of propaganda. And it's like, oh, we're doing all of these good things, but at the same time, one of the main issues I found in the Ensign Peak League was the finances of industries that are against what we believe and what we stand for, you know.
mm, yeah,
Which mainly for me is the gun manufacturer companies, you know, like Northern Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and there's around 10 in total that are for me is like big issues. Because just to give you a little context, Costa Rica, we don't have an army. we're like we have a this vision of we can call it peace in a sense, in a perfect world where you don't need guns, which is very different from the US culture. Because I know that you actually like your guns, and it's like a different perspective on how you see it. But I think the church shouldn't just they we shouldn't involve in anything related to that, and we shouldn't use tithing money to finance any company that might actually affect uh people, like in any
Yeah.
part of the world. So
Yeah, no,
that was
I
the
actually want
reason
to.
I started. So yeah,
Yeah,
tell
no,
me.
actually, with the, you know what, I actually agree with you on the what you're saying about like translating it, because like so I've attended the past couple of years a Spanish board, um, just to keep practicing my the language, and I've seen like a lot of talks I want to share. A lot of them are from like the 1970s or 80s or something, and you can't find them in Spanish, and so
Hmm.
I think that there definitely needs to be a greater effort from the church's side in translating and making those things more easily available, to the membership and just information. And so, yeah, I don't know how we can remedy that. I don't know what that looks like. But I'm with you on that. I definitely think there needs to be greater effort, especially considering the fact that in the future, Latin American community will be bigger than, like you said, than the English speaking. I mean, if we read in the Book of Mormon what we believe, it says that you know that if their Nephi the Savior said that like the time would come, like if the Gentiles didn't repent, the remnant of Jacob would be amongst them as a lion that treadeth down. And so I think that the time is coming where you're seeing that, and you see that pattern in the Book of Mormon where you have one group who originally had the gospel, and then they become a little bit more prideful, a little bit more, a little bit more prideful, right? A
Yeah,
little bit less in touch with belief and faith in God. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing of the transition right now is what's happening is
yeah.
Latin America is increasing their faith versus you have a lot of American culture has kind of digressed in a sense. So
Yeah. And it's important that you mentioned this, like there's a lot of talks, like very old talks that are not translated, and that I think we deserve to have in our own language. But at the same time, like there's very recent news, text, essays that we just don't get in Spanish. Like the church got one. I did a video about this one, about the legalization of marijuana in Utah, and how it's not against the word of wisdom to have medical marijuana as a treatment. And I was looking for it in Spanish, and again, it just doesn't exist. We don't get it this,
oh really?
this crucial information. Yeah. So, for example, in my country, medical marijuana is legal, and there might be members who need it, but they won't do it because they think it's against the word of wisdom. But
Yeah.
they, I think there's a lot of issues that they just throw out in the website, and they're like, oh, we published this. But I think there should be a change where we can actually get like this new we can call it material. We can get this new material read to us in a sacrament meeting, or in a, I don't know, in a place where everyone can acknowledge what the current changes of the church are. Or even like we can, I don't know if this should be talked in a general conference, but these are big changes that can actually affect people's life, but we don't even get in our language, and they are not addressed by a general authority or someone who we might say like, oh, okay, look, this is going on in the church.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you. So in like that stuff, you guys don't get all the same like news stories like for church news that we
We
get.
yeah,
Okay.
we definitely don't. Like even one of the issues I talk about is the current conflict in the Middle East, in Gaza, Israel and all of this. And when this started, we got just in this almost 2 years or more. No, it's almost 3 years of the conflict. We only got one letter not even signed and not even translated. Like the first presidency just said like, oh, it's too bad what is going on, and that's it, you know. There was not even like nothing in Spanish, nothing acknowledging like that the Latin America community would also deserve to know that the church is concerned about this. And it's like the pattern, you know. It's like they say, no, this is only for the English speaking persons, which is still kind of it feels like a second class membership, you know, because it's like, oh no, we just get used to not getting this information. And if you don't know English, is your problem, you know. It kind of feels like that. And I say it from my perspective where I do speak English, you know, but I
Yeah,
see like a lot of people just not being informed because it's the language barrier is still there, you know. So
yeah. So I guess the question is like, where is that disconnect happening? Is that, from the like in the church, right? Obviously, there's a point where the information is just not getting communicated. So we need to figure out, okay, where is this happening? Why? And then make sure that that same information that we get here in the U.S. and all the English speaking countries is also being, you know, because I imagine it's not it could be wrong, but I'm imagining that it's not only the Spanish speaker that it's like that for, but a lot of other languages as well,
yeah,
where just in general they translate some things like talks and different things, but not nearly half as much information as is what is coming out. So yeah, maybe that's
yeah.
something with the yeah, we just got to figure out where that is. I don't know. Where do you think that disconnect's happening?
Um, I think the church have the resources to do it. It's just a lack of interest in doing it for me. Like, why wouldn't they just look for a way to translate it? Like, even with I think it would be like easy, like a very easy thing to do, and you would expect that they would make the effort to do it. But you know, if I also got because when I started doing this channel and all of this con content on Instagram, I got a very interesting response from the Latin America community, and they said like, you just need to learn English, you know? And I was like, yeah, I know if you learn English is better, but there's a lot of, you know, we have, I don't know if you got this from your mission, but there's a lot of still like low education in the Latin American community where they only speak Spanish for generations. Like old people, they not gonna learn English in 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 the next 5 years, for example. So I think it's just literally just there's not a willingness to do this. And from the Latin America community, we still don't ask for it. So that's one of all the reasons I started it. Like we need to ask for these things, you know? As the scripture says, I don't know the scripture in English, but it's pedid y recibiréis. How do you say this in English?
Ask ye shall receive.
Yeah, like it's also about that. I think the members are way too used to just waiting for things to happen
Hmm.
when we can actually start doing things so they will happen. So that's kind of
Yeah,
my perspective, you know, we need to start asking for some of these things.
yeah. You actually reminded me of like a scripture in Doctrine and Covenants. Um,
Hmm.
uh, section 58, verse 26, he says, "For behold, it is not meet that I should command in all things, for he that is compelled in all things, the same is a slothful and not a wise servant. Wherefore he
Mm.
receiveth no reward. Verily I say, men should be anxiously engaged in a good cause, and do many things of their own free will, and bring to pass much righteousness." And I think that's
Hmm.
relevant because, like, you saw the need and then you started fulfilling it, right? And I think a lot of times that's how we just have to do it in the church of like I started my page because I saw like, okay, I thought there's a lot of these issues that I see going on in my own country that are like super apparent. Like they shut down during COVID, they shut down all of the churches, but like in California, for example, they kept open all the marijuana dispensaries. So they restricted
Hmm.
our ability to go and worship God. The government did during that time,
Hmm.
but you could go get high if you wanted to. It didn't make any sense. and the church
Hmm.
just didn't say anything about it, right? And so I guess
Yeah.
the point being, I realized like, oh, as members, we have to step up. We have to stop looking sometimes at our leaders and going, why aren't you doing this? And we need to take that responsibility on ourselves. And I'm so glad that you've done that and that you're trying to do that, because God can use you now. Now that you see that need, He's going to use you to accomplish the task. So I
Yep.
think that's awesome that that you've been taking the opportunity to try to communicate what's not being communicated.
Do you feel like doing this kind of, do you feel like what you're doing is activism?
Um, I would say what I'm doing is just sharing my perspective. I'm not really trying to, I'm just sharing my perspective more so. I think of, hey, I read this talk. I thought this was interesting. Sometimes I share my perspective on a talk I read. And sometimes I should share my perspective on a political event that happened in my state in Utah or elsewhere. So I think it's
Mm,
more so I'm trying to just, hey, this is what I'm seeing, some problems I'm seeing around me. Some of these things are, and some of the things that matter to me are, of course, the church, and some things that matter to me are things that are going on in my country. And so
hmm.
I don't want to ever be like, I don't want to confuse people, right? So I'm still working on my
Yeah.
messaging and getting better at it, and so it's a process that I'm trying to learn and do differently and better.
I think that's a challenge for people like you and me that are trying to raise awareness of some of these issues because I don't know if this happened to you, but for me it was like a lot of friends, like close friends and even family and members of the church, they were like, "Oh no, you're trying to undermine what the leaders are doing, you know?" And that like I feel like my perspective is like, no, I'm trying actually to help to raise awareness of what the members need so they can have a more like a clearer vision to to know what's going on and to take decisions, you know, to make decisions. I feel like I'm trying to help, but a lot of people got me like, no, you're trying to do activism against the church, or you're trying to counsel the leaders of the church. And it's like if you think about it, like just the first presidency and the apostles, I mean that they're I don't want this to sound bad, but they're already busy with a lot of things. So if members are just waiting for things to happen, it's like a lot of things can actually happen if we just organize ourselves and like have these conversations and start making decisions, obviously respecting some of their authority, but we cannot just leave everything to them and wait for things to happen. I think we should open up these conversations and be more aware of what we can do to make the work go forward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And then I think, and that's kind of the risk you run when you try to start speaking about anything is like, I'm sure I'm gonna look back on some things I've said or whatever, and I'm like, what was I thinking, right? Like at the moment,
Yeah.
but you know, but the intention is good, and I think if as long as you're trying to do the right thing, I think God understands that, and I think I don't, and as long as, like you said, like as long as we're respecting the authority of the church, right? I don't think there's a problem, and I also think yeah, like you said, we need to take it upon ourselves. We don't need to wait to be commanded and told by the leaders every single thing. I think that's actually the problem is that most of the time people do that and they don't actually try. So, and also I think a lot of times like it's really hard because on Instagram it's all short content, right? Like it's all like you're trying to catch people's attention for 30 seconds or for a minute or for 2 minutes. And so those
Yeah.
messages tend to get blurred a little bit, and so people might think you're saying something that you're not quite saying versus like, or maybe even me, I might have thought like you were saying something when I was looking at your page, like, oh, what is this? But then when I
Yeah.
actually sit down and talk with you, I'm like, oh, okay, no, we're actually on the same, like we're pretty much thinking the same way. We're just not having
Yeah.
these longer conversations.
I want to ask about that. Like, was there any content I made that you were like, oh, what is this? Like, I wonder what he meant with this, or
Oh no, just with like I guess just with like the Lamanite stuff, which we can go ahead and get into that. I just wanted to know what your issue was with that, and
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with Lamanites, like if we can find their DNA, if we can find their heritage, like of course, I'm excited about that. However, just to give you a little context, I'm a descendant of Native Americans. Like even we did the DNA test, and my grandparents are like 50-60% Native Americans from my mother's side, and when I say native, I say indigenous people from Central America. All right, it's not like from the U.S.
Yeah.
Um, and from my dad's side, my great grandfather, he was also direct descendant of indigenous people in Central America. In my mission, I met people from Panama, indigenous people. I met in Guatemala, I met in Peru, I met from Ecuador and Colombia, Mexico. Like I've been in contact with these people, and a lot of them part of the church. And the big issue for me is hearing them calling themselves Lamanites when there's not blood relation with them. And I think just erase for me is dangerous as what we're doing as a church to just erase a lot of the real history of the indigenous people of Latin America, just calling them Lamanites without any real DNA proof of it. And I think I really like I think even the science, even the church is on my side, not on my side, but it's on this side when I say like there's no evidence right now of any DNA related to the Lamanites. And if there's gonna be new discoveries in the future, like of course I'm open to it, but we shouldn't erase Latin America history by just calling indigenous people Lamanites when they are not even blood related. That's one of my big issues. And I made a video about this. And even people in the church still today, even though the essay is out about the DNA of the Book of Mormon, because the essay is on that, and this one is both in Spanish and English, and it says like it clearly says like there's no proof that we know nothing about the DNA of the Book of Mormon. And it's like, all right, like we can still look for it, but so far just don't call my family, don't call my ancestors Lamanites, because it's not what we are. And I don't
Hmm.
know what's your perspective on this, but you might have a different opinion. I want to hear about.
Yeah, no, I think so I read that essay actually after I watched your video, and I think the confusion is like obviously, I mean, look, I know the Book of Mormon is the word of God. I know that it was, I have a strong testimony of that, and that Joseph Smith actually translated it from ancient records, that it's not just some sort of you know, false thing. And I'm actually here real quick. I haven't done this before, so I'm going to share my screen. Um,
Yeah.
there's actually some artifacts that they found, like
Hmm.
Hebrew artifacts. Wait, one sec.
There's a lot in a valley in the US, right? I think I've seen some of this before.
Yeah, so they found. Let's see here. Can you see my screen?
I cannot see it.
No. Okay. Well, I'll just post it in the clip afterwards, but once I go in through and edit. But so they found a
Yeah,
few
sure.
different ones, like the Bat Creek stone, for example. They found it in Tennessee, I believe. And at first they thought it was Cherokee writing, because that's where the Cherokee Indians were. And so, but then
Hmm.
years later they flipped it the other way, and they realized, oh, this looks like Hebrew writing. And then
Mm.
they found another one, the Newark Holy Stones, they're called, in Ohio, and it's Moses holding the Ten Commandments. And so they found this
Wow.
stone. They found this stone on some wood on a burial ground, like in ancient Native American burial ground. And the wood, they dated it back to like I think like about 100 AD or BC. And so to me, it was just
Okay.
like, okay, so it's just like me. There is evidence, right, of the Book of Mormon, but obviously we don't know exactly like um, I think there was a misconception for a long time in the church that all of Native Americans were descended of Lamanites and that there were no other groups, and that Joseph Smith never taught that. and that was never like a thing, right? Of where there was
I
only
th-
this one group in the Americas. In fact, there's all the evidence points that there were a lot of other groups as well, other than the Nephites and
yeah,
Lamanites, right? So it's not like it was just the Nephites and Lamanites. There was many other groups that were here in the Americas. The Book of Mormon is just about those two groups, and so I think the trouble
yeah,
is like because we don't, there hasn't been a lot more revealed about specific locations of it and all of that. We're just barely starting to put the pieces together as more and more archaeological evidence is coming out. And so this is something as well as like there has been archaeological evidence for the Book of Mormon, but a lot of it, like the Smithsonian has destroyed or they have hidden, or anytime any evidence comes out, they they instantly dismiss it or say that it's not, to try to fit the narrative, right, that has been taught. And I
yeah.
also most
Mhm.
archaeological evidence is still buried. Like there's still so much of Latin America where they haven't uncovered. You know, there's whole cities and all of it,
Yeah,
right? All of these buildings down there, right? So
I mean, I'm all for it. Like, if we can start digging up and finding more evidence, like, of course, is welcome. My issue here is that we still have missionaries coming to to our countries and being like going to the indigenous people and telling them, oh yeah, you are Lamanites, and even a lot of indigenous people will call themselves, oh yeah, I'm the descendant of the Lamanites. Or we will go to a historical place, like we will go to Tikal, which is a place in Guatemala. They have pyramids and everything. And they would say like, I remember this trip specifically, they would say like, oh, this is one of the members of the church told us this is the tower of the King Benjamin. And if you look at the dates, it's not even close to match that. So there's this whole narrative going on, that is, for me, so dangerous because as I told you, I don't want to see the history of my people, of my ancestors just being erased and simplified to, oh, Lamanites, and that's it. No, it's more complex than that. There's traditions, there's the whole language, the way they dress, the way they eat, the even the genocide they suffer in the past. It cannot be just simplified as a Lamanite. And if we can find the Lamanites, I mean, awesome. But just don't erase our history. Like the church shouldn't be involved in erasing anyone's history in Latin America and simplifying it as Lamanite, which still a big issue in in our community. Like when I'm telling you this, is like I've seen indigenous people just calling themselves Lamanites, and I'm like, no, you're not. You probably not even related to them. You have your own tradition. Don't think like this is like, don't erase your own history. You have your own thing, and we should honor your thing. And if Lamanites come along and somehow in a way in history in the future, I'm open to it. But let's just not simplify it, because I think is a dangerous way of erasing our heritage.
okay,
So
no, that's
yeah,
actually fair, and honestly, I pretty much agree with you in the sense of that you really can't simplify it to just say it was just, that you really can't simplify it because of how much information we don't have. You can't
yeah,
definitively, for sure, you can't definitively say, like, we still don't even know exactly where the Book of Mormon took place. And obviously, now that we've had the Book of Mormon for a couple hundred years, people have theorized and have really tried to put it together of where it could have taken place and what could have happened, but we don't have all of the answers. And so until we do, for sure, you can't say that every single indigenous person, or that somebody that has ancestry, you know, from the Native Americans
mhm,
is descended from the Lamanites. You just can't say that because there's not. I see your point, and I agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully we can find more. I think if actually, I'm leaning towards, if they find something, it would be actually in the US somehow, because this is the places where you mentioned, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all the places they found a lot of the stuff happened in the U.S. and um, there's kind of a debate right now in between people they call them Heartlanders, and then for those are like Heartland is like the middle of the U.S. So a
Hmm.
lot of people theorize that's where the Book of Mormon took place. And then Joseph Smith in I believe it was in Ohio, or in Illinois. It was close to the Great Lakes. They found this ancient Indian burial site. And he said that one of those that the burial site they found was of I'm pretty sure he was of a Lamanite named Zelph. Um, and so I tend to think the Book of Mormon probably took place in America, probably. But because the Americas are so large, yeah, you can't just say like, oh, it was all, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's related to the Lamanites. Like, it's not that simple. There's a lot more going on. We just only know about the Nephites, the Lamanites, and the Jaredites. That's all we know. There's so much more, and I hope that in the future we'll know more. All we really know now is what is the little bit of evidence we have, and then from the words of the prophets, right?
And it's exciting, like if we can find more of this, it's very exciting. That the problem is that we sometimes get caught up in the excitement, and then we start like, oh, we just start creating this whole history in our mind, and it's like, oh, let's wait, let's be patient. Like things are gonna come in their own time. Let's wait for the results. Let's wait for the things to happen. Um, and I know it's exciting, but let's just wait, let's just wait a little bit more. If the history is there, it's gonna be there for sure. So let's wait for that. But in the meantime, let's just not simplify it to just Lamanites, the whole indigenous
Yeah,
people.
no, that's fair, and I actually agree with you. I don't think that the Nephites and the Lamanites were the only group. I think there were probably a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, even in the Book of Mormon, right, you have the part where King Mosiah meets the Mulekites, and it's like, whoa,
Hmm.
there's this whole other group of people that we didn't know that were here, and then they meet them, and then they become one people, and they find out that they also had left Jerusalem, and um,
Yep.
so yeah, for that reason, it's like there could have been plenty of other groups that traveled from different parts of the world and settled here, and we don't know about it because the history wasn't recorded, and some of it was recorded, like in like the Spanish, for example, when they arrived to Mexico, I believe it was the Mayans had a bunch of codices, basically these writings, and the Spanish they just burned them all. They just burned all of it, and it was like a bunch of writings. It's like, wow, what
Yeah.
would we have known? What would we have known if they hadn't burned those?
Yep.
So
Yep. So
yeah,
we need to keep waiting. Let's see.
yeah. But yeah, there is, I think. So yeah, there's very little we know. I would say, um, kind of the reason, obviously, the reason people think that, right? Because they want to think, hey, I'm related to the Israelites, and I'm, descended of Lehi. And also, there's a verse in Doctrine and Covenants 49:24. I'll read it to you. He says, "But before the great day of the Lord shall come, Jacob shall flourish in the wilderness, and the Lamanites shall blossom as the rose." So I think a lot of people take that verse, right, to say, okay,
I mean, the narrative changes a lot, like we I think Brigham Young, Joseph Smith, and I mean still today a lot of leaders they like strictly call indigenous people Lamanites. And the narrative change, the Book of Mormon used to say like they are the main they're the main ancestors of the indigenous people of the Americans, and now he says they're among they are among the ancestors. So the narrative is being changing, and it's for me is progress, and it's important that it actually changed because it's being more true to what we actually found. I think about that time when they wrote this scripture, and even there's another one in Doctrine and Covenant that they ordained Oliver Cowdery to go and preach to the Lamanites. So I think the narrative at that time was actually like, no, all Native Americans, at least in the US, are descendants of the Lamanites.
mhm. But let
Um,
me ask you something.
which
Don't you think, th- so you believe Joseph Smith was a prophet of God, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah, of
believe the
course.
Book of Mormon was translated, right? Obviously, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
So I mean, so I think on this is what I believe. I believe Joseph Smith had pretty much everything right, spot on. And I think the problem is we don't take enough time to really study what he said. And obviously Brigham Young said some things that were off. I still think he was a prophet of God, but he also said some things that we look back and we go, okay, yeah, he was speaking as a man at this time. He wasn't speaking as a prophet, right? So I think you just have to have the spirit when you're learning, and then as well, like you said, the narrative has changed because we've also learned more about the history of the Americas. Like they didn't know much about it back then, right? Other than what Joseph
Mm,
Smith taught, that was like all that was really known. And so I
yes.
think, yeah,
I think here I want to hear your opinion on this because I am very open to say, for example, that polygamy was a mistake, you know? Like there's a lot of things Joseph Smith did that I'm open to say that was just a mistake. And we need to acknowledge it and move from that. Because for example, we got recently a cartoon trying to justify polygamy for Brigham Young and Joseph Smith. And like the church is still trying to teach this, and is still like a strong doctrine that I don't know if we still believe that polygamy is a thing, at least for on the afterlife, like if we're gonna
yeah.
still have
Well,
a lot of wives.
yeah. Well, do you know that President Nelson is sealed to two women?
It's still to two women, yeah. So it's still like
So,
a spiritual practice, but not like
so it,
a
it, it yeah, it's still like a spiritual practice, but not an actual practice. This is a huge debate right now, and one of the big doctrinal schisms, I would say, that exists within the church that we're still trying to work out. Because there are some people who say that, hey, Joseph Smith never actually practiced polygamy, and it was
Mhm.
all Brigham Young. It was all Brigham Young. He kind of brought it about. And then there's a lot of people who say, no, Joseph Smith did. There's just a lot of different narratives about it, right? Some people say Joseph Smith did, and he made a mistake. Some people say, some like for example, section 132 is where it talks about polygamy. Um, uh, I believe that section was what I've heard from some people is, hey, they found that section like 20 years later in Utah somewhere, and so a lot of people theorize Brigham Young just wrote it and said that Joseph Smith did, and so this is a big thing that I think, unfortunately, there's some questions that we just might not have the full answers to until Christ comes back and until, you know, and we
This
just
is
have to
this
use
is
the
the
Holy
way
Spirit, right? It's and just discern the best we can.
this is the way I try to see these issues, and it's like were they people suffering from it, you know? Were the women around this suffering from what happened during the polygamy, according to history? And that's why I think you might disagree with me on this one, but that's what I think we actually need to hear more about um the this is gonna be a little uh I don't know, you're not gonna agree with this one, but I think we need to hear more about what the ex-Mormon community needs to say, because they actually dig up a lot on the history more than what the church actually wants to tell us publicly, you know? You need to fact check a lot of the things they say, but a lot of the progress the church made historically is because of people trying to speak out about issues that were doctrine at that time. And when I say this, I say, for example, the priesthood to the Black community. There were people actually inside the church calling for the leaders to stop the segregation going on in the church, and a lot of them got excommunicated. There were protests in BYU for this. Other universities didn't want the church to participate in the sport events because they were actively segregating, or they call it segregation at that time. And I think a lot of the progress the church made and a lot of the changes we made to include more people in the church were because of people speaking up about these issues. And yesterday I had another can you call it interview, like a live podcast in a way with a Latin American guy who got his register out of the church, and I think maybe we don't like to say this, but again, a lot of the progress inside the church was thanks to people who are not longer members, because they were honest enough to open up these issues and open up the conversations in order to change. And again, there were people suffering during polygamy. There were people suffering during the priesthood ban to the African community. And if we just see it as okay, it was just a doctrine, but that time we're not acknowledging the real suffering people had. And there's still people suffering today because of policies the church still hasn't changed. Um, and for me,
Like what policies?
again, if we go to the ensign pick issue, which is probably one of the biggest for me,
Oh,
like,
right.
yeah, like why are
Yeah,
we even financing guns? Like why are we financing the war machine?
yeah,
Like Spencer W. Kimball gave a big speech about this. He was like, let's not worship the false gods of steel and rocks, you
yeah,
know? And he's
yeah.
very specific. He says, mm,
I think that what it is it's like the the doctrine of the church is perfect, right? The restored truths. If you really study them, they are true. The one that people do have hard time accepting would be the polygamy thing. I think, but I think the rest of the doctrines, there's no question amongst the general membership that those are all true. Um, other than the polygamy question. Um, but no, I agree with you. There's definitely been some problems throughout church history. Absolutely. I mean, when Christ started his church, Judas betrayed him. There's always it's been a pattern. It's just human behavior, unfortunately. And when we see problems, we need to speak out. We need to speak up on them. We need to say something. So absolutely, I agree with you. We need to say something. Joseph Smith. I think as far as the blacks in the priesthood, Joseph Smith ordained blacks to the priesthood. Elijah Abel,
yeah,
he ordained him. He served a mission, but when Joseph Smith did his candidacy for the U.S. presidency, part of his plan was he was going to sell federal land and use the money to pay slave owners to free all of the slaves. And that was one of the reasons the Saints were so persecuted was in Missouri was because Missouri was a slave state at the time. And Joseph Smith had a lot of influence over how the Saints voted. And they were abolitionists. They didn't believe in slavery. Joseph Smith called it priestcraft and evil. And so that was a lot of the reason they got persecuted. And so I think God sometimes used an imperfect individual like Brigham because he needed Brigham at the time. He needed somebody who's a little bit racist, who was a little bit, you know, because they were so persecuted, the church may have not survived without a leader like him at the time because they were already so heavily persecuted. That's just my opinion. That's not obviously it's not doctrine. That's just my opinion. Is that sometimes God calls imperfect men because their weaknesses can be used for that specific situation. So yeah, I don't know, but
yeah. In that same idea, that's why I'm so openly like, no, polygamy, like that's how I see it. Just like polygamy was wrong. That's it. We should move forward from that, you know.
yeah,
If you
but I
try to
also
have a
feel
testimony about it, it's like, yeah, you can look for a testimony about it, but I don't think it's gonna actually change anything. I think that the right approach would be like, okay, it was a wrong thing we did. Even the priesthood ban, I was like, yeah, it was wrong, and let's move forward. You know, there's a lot of things we can still focus on, but if we still try to justify it, it's like a conversation that is never gonna end.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I think pretty
from
much everybody agrees that it was wrong. I'm not saying it was right that Brigham Young denied blacks the priesthood. I'm just simply
mm,
saying that it might have lessened some of the tension the members felt at the time. Be, right? Not that it was correct, not that he should have done it, but simply that even because he did it, and a lot of those ideas he got were also from other Christians at the time. People don't know this, but that's actually where a lot of the members got is there was other Christians, Protestants that were teaching that the seed of Cain was cursed and stuff. And so kind of some of the members of the church heard that from them and started believing those doctrines from them, even though Joseph never taught that. So, yeah, we can acknowledge for sure the bad things, the wrong things, and just move forward. I mean, a lot of these things are in the past. We don't need to. That's my thing too with the polygamy stuff. It's like it doesn't really matter to me because we don't practice it anymore, and it doesn't affect me. And
I think what we can learn from it is that the church is like the restoration is an ongoing process, and we need to be part of it, you know?
yeah,
Like again, like just waiting for the leaders to tell us like, oh, this is gonna happen, this is what we're gonna do, is like it's being lazy learners. That's how I see it. We should actually get more involved on these kind of issues and be like, oh, we can have the conversation about it with other members and raise awareness about of some of these things that are happening. So the change is gonna be quicker maybe, or revelation is gonna come faster in a way because we're ready to receive it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But if we just keep waiting for it and not doing anything, it's like the progress is gonna be very, very slow.
yeah. Yeah, it's up to us, the regular everyday members, you and
It's
me, to have these conversations, to do this, and to speak about it, and
it's
it's
really up
all
to us.
do it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man. Okay, so we talked about so we talked about Lamanites, we talked about some of the Latin American issues. As far as the enzyme peak, I guess maybe we can finish a little bit more on that. Um, you know what, I actually, there's definitely some issues, right? Like I don't think we should, I mean, the church should invest their money and be wise stewards, but the question is, how should they do it, right? So, for me, it's not a matter of like, no, they're doing the right thing by investing money. They're doing wise things, but how are they investing it? And I think that's the issue that you see. And I can agree with you. There's certain companies that we shouldn't have stocks in, that we shouldn't invest in. It's just because that doesn't align with what we believe, right? So I don't know.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean the big one for me is the gun manufacturers. Like I know this is a big culture in the US having your guns and everything, but do we really need to invest in nuclear weapons? You know? Is this really helping someone? And people say, when I raise this issue to Latin America, to my Costa Rican members, they say like, "Oh no, you don't understand about finance." It's like, this is not a finance issue. This is a moral issue. This is an ethical, like a Christian completely issue. Like, I don't want your lessons on finance when what we need is like a better moral standard for the world, Even again, like the church for me has been way too complicit in what's going on in the Middle East with Palestine and Israel. Like the fact that the churches around the US, like Christian churches, and evangelical, like more than that 350 churches signed a letter saying we need a ceasefire, and the church didn't, you know. The fact that for me this is controversial for a lot of people, but the last speech from Ronald R. Rasband in the conference, he was like calling for a hurrah, hurrah for Israel. And I know this is a historical thing that we have in the church. Hooray, hooray for Israel. How do you say this in English?
Yeah, hoorah for Israel.
Hooray,
Yeah, yeah,
hurrah for
hoorah,
Israel.
hooray, yeah, hoorah for Israel.
And yeah, I made a video about this and how this is an historical thing. We've been saying this for a long time, but I think like not acknowledging what is happening and then just using your
Well,
platform.
I think the hoorah for Israel, like they're talking about Israel as in the sense of the house of it, La Casa de Israel, right? The house of
Yeah,
Israel, not necessarily
clear.
about the country of Israel, right? I don't know
Yeah,
which talk
yeah.
you're referencing, but
This is Ronald L. Rasband, the first session Saturday. He gave this speech. Um, and I don't know. I feel like the narrative, at least in the culture of the church, is still that the country of Israel is the chosen people of God. And I've seen a lot of members telling me this, like, oh no, because they're the chosen people. It's like, no, they're not. We should clarify this, We
Yes.
should
No,
like
I'm
openly
I'm
clarify
actually
this.
agree with you. Like I actually agree with you. I think there's been a lot of confusion. People because it is prophesied the Jews are going to return to Israel. Man, we could go. I could go on for this for hours. So we better not get too far into it. But because of that, now they suddenly think that everything the government does of Israel is perfect, and that they can't
Mhm.
sin, and that every action they take is okay, and that we just need to unapologetically support them if they're fulfilling prophecy, and they treat them almost as like I'm gonna get some flack for this, almost like gods. Like they treat these
Yeah,
people as if that they can like
they can
there's
do
some
whatever they
people that
want.
they have a sense of worship almost towards the Jews, and I don't understand it. And it's like, no, these people have rejected Christ. These people are blowing up children. These people, if you look at all of the secret combinations, they all go back to Israel. Jeffrey Epstein, he was
Hmm.
trafficking children, and he was doing it. He was an agent for Israel. So the Israeli government hired him to bring these politicians from around the world and to get them to do these horrific acts with underage children, film it, and then blackmail them. And so there's a lot of bad things that are going, and the church membership doesn't know about it. You and I know about it,
Mm.
but they don't know about it. And so they only see the good side, which is the prophecy about how Christ is going to come back, how the old Jerusalem is going to be restored. And so they only see that side, but they don't see the bad side. And I think we just need to bring more awareness to it, like you're trying to do, to hey, there's another side that we're not seeing here. We have to look at the full picture. We can't just look at this one side. We also have to see what else is going on. So I don't know.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the church is involved in this issue. Through I say through three ways. The silence from church leaders. Like I think like we can actually the church as an organization should be more open about condemning bad things going on, not only in the world, but I think like being an American church, like mainly an American church, they should be more open about condemning what the government might do. And actually, I've seen a lot of your posts, and Ezra Taft Benson was very open about criticizing what the government was doing. So we already did it. Like we have history of this. Even Gordon B. Hinckley, he gave a speech about war and peace, and he said openly like the Muslims are not our enemy. I think this is a conversation we need to start having again inside the church, where we have quotes from prophets even saying like if we want to build, you know, the prophet Hunter, he said if there's gonna be a connection between Christianity and Muslim, it must be built through the Mormon church. And there's a lot of speeches about how we should get closer to the Muslim community. And right now, I'm afraid that a lot of people are actually becoming against the Muslim community just because the propaganda and the media is portraying again Israel as the chosen one, and Christians should be on the side of Israel and all of this. Like we need the leaders to speak up more
Yeah,
about how we should be a peaceful community and not advocating for any war. So that's one thing.
yeah,
The other thing again is the financing of weapons, like weapons that are being used today in the Middle East to put to the ongoing genocide. And the other part, which is maybe harder to digest, is that the fact that BYU Jerusalem is actually on occupied land. Like, what are we doing taking occupied land? And we like I don't think they're planning on doing anything about this. So the church for me is completely involved in the issue, so they should be aware of what they're doing, but they just don't want to acknowledge it. It's just better to ignore what's happening.
yeah. It's easier to ignore, and I understand in some sense why the church tries to remain neutral, because we have to understand that I mean the church is we're a global church now, so they have properties in every country in the world, and so they have to be careful with what they say because so they don't get kicked out of that country, right? So but at the same time, we also have to stand for freedom, and we have to stand for righteousness, and we have to stand for the principles which Jesus Christ taught, right? We can't, maybe not say anything just because what's more
You
important to
might
us,
lose a
our,
property.
our,
Yeah, exactly.
our property, or is the gospel more? You know what I'm saying? So I agree with
Yes.
you. We need to speak up more, and that's kind of why I started my page, because I was like our prophets used to say things all the times about the government corruption, about bad things that were going on that they saw, and now they say nothing. That it's almost like they
And now
ignore it.
they're
And, and,
completely
and I would
silent
get to
about it.
conference, yeah, and I would get to conference and be like it was like, what's going on? Like it's like there's this giant elephant right here, and we keep just talking the same things. So
We keep
hopefully,
ignoring it, yeah.
yeah, we keep ignoring it. So, but
Yeah.
that's, I think, where the individual members like you and me can come in and try to make the difference and try to bring awareness.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like when I actually I see a lot of your posts is like, oh, like thankfully, like finally someone is talking about this. And I mean, oh wait, I think I froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's gross. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I when I see your posts, a lot of them is like finally someone's talking about this. I know you have over 11,000 followers, so it's like that's we're walking towards the right direction, and its members being more actively talking about political issues, because at the end of the day everything is political. We can say like we're neutral political as an institution, but everything is political. We cannot just try to solve the world without acknowledging the policies that are happening. And we can see this on the Book of Mormon, when they have corrupt leaders politically, like the people the the people of this, like the group of people, they would also go corrupt because their leaders were corrupt. So it's actually related. We cannot just say like, oh no, we're not gonna get involved. That for me, that's not an option.
Yeah, for me neither. It's like, how can we be neutral? And there's a quote from Ezra Taft Benson. So he served in the White House for the U.S. president back in the 1950s for 8 years. So he was like basically talking to the president of the U.S. every single day, and he was also ordained as an apostle at the time. And so when I started reading what he was saying, it kind of started opening my eyes of like we really have to take a stand on these issues. We can't just say nothing. And he said that, you know, the war in heaven was political. It was probably controversial back then. And it's no different in our day. It's just the war in heaven playing out on earth. That's what we see nowadays. That's
Mhm.
what we're seeing in Israel and Gaza. It's the war in heaven playing out. And
Yeah.
and we have to speak up. We have to say something. We have to tell the truth. In Jerusalem at the BYU Center, they make all of the students sign a petition saying they will not share their beliefs with Jews. They can't say anything. If a Jew asks them what they believe, they can't say anything. They have to be silent. And they made that deal with Israel because Israel was like, when they were trying to get the land in Israel, there was huge riots and saying like, all the Mormons are going to come over here trying to like convert us, because all the Orthodox Jews didn't want it to happen. And so the church
Hmm.
signed a deal with them saying, we won't do any of that. No missionaries. We're not going to share anything, and we won't even say anything. So it's like, how can we do that, right? How can we be silent on these things?
Yeah.
I don't
Even
understand it.
I saw this post on Facebook about a guy who was in BYU Jerusalem. They did a whole presentation, or how do you call it? Exposición? How do you say exposición? Like a
Exposition. Yeah.
exposition? Yeah, they did a whole exposition about the Palestine culture without, they couldn't say Palestine. Like that was one of the rules. It's like we're gonna show you all of this, but we cannot say what is this. We're just gonna show you a little heritage of this land, but we cannot say Palestine. It's like why are we being part of this? For me, is a It's a moral issue. It's not only a it's not only a, oh no, we want this land. It's like a big moral issue that we cannot do these kind of things in church property, and that we're actually participating in such a corrupt and culture, you know.
Yeah, I think recently it's like the world has woken up to a lot of the propaganda that has been taught about Israel and about that country and about how it came to be and about different things. And so these all of those things for years weren't really known, and like they really don't have the same freedom of speech or religion that we have out over in Israel that we have here in America. Like Christians can't proselytize in Israel.
Yeah.
You can't do it. The Jews, I've seen videos, they spit on them, they throw them, and so unfortunately the church membership has this idea of, oh, it's God's chosen people and they can do whatever they want, and they are, some like we it's just a lack of education. And even myself, even up until recently, I had still been buying into that line of thinking until God started opening my eyes of like, no, there's a whole other side you're not seeing. Yes, there's a lot of good things that are happening. Yes, the old Jerusalem is being restored, but there like it really is the center of the world in the sense of the spiritual war that's going on. It's just we're living in the last days. It's all prophesied, and until the Jews really accept Christ, there's not never going to be peace in Israel, and they're not going to accept him until he comes back. So unfortunately, this is
Hmm.
just and
Yeah.
it's sad to see. Even myself, I had bought into a lot of the stuff, the propaganda of they could just blow up all the Gazans they wanted, and then eventually I went, wait a sec, this is not, something's not right here. Something is very wrong. So hopefully we can bring awareness. But yeah, man. I don't know if you got any other thoughts to share. That I appreciate your time. So
Yeah, I mean, I would like to keep talking about this because maybe we missed the topic of communism. I know you're big against communism. Yeah, I've
oh
seen your
yeah,
post, which is also related to the Latin America point I wanted to make. We can maybe have a conversation later about this, but actually, from the Latin America perspective, communism actually brought a lot of good things for our communities. Um, which you would call it communism, like because that's the name we use for it, but actually, it's a lot of principles we can find in in uh in communities in Europe that are actually progressing, or even principles. We call it gospel principles? But for me, it's a big issue. For
you mean
example,
socialism,
how socialism, yeah,
Like in Venezuela or Cuba?
I'm gonna give you Venezuela and Cuba is like the example they always use to like demonize what is happening. But for example, my country had we had a big coalition between communists, Christians, and it was communists. It was the Catholic Church, the communists, and the government. They did a big coalition, and we were for a long time because of these policies. We were one of the most richest country, if you can say it, in Central America, the most peaceful, the richest, and the one that was progressing the most because of these policies we adopted from communism, you know.
Costa Rica?
Um, you can read about it. You can go to Costa Rica and how the
Okay.
Communist Party actually helped
Yeah,
the country to move forward.
yeah. You'll have to send me like a link or something to it. That's a huge conversation we could have. I've studied a lot. I don't know if you've studied about the Bolsheviks in Russia, but that's how when they did communism, sick they so yeah, I don't want to get too much into it because I could go on for days, but basically that's how genocide started, was the Jewish Bolsheviks in Russia.
I would love to have the conversation.
Yeah. We'll have this full conversation. We can have this full conversation the other day, but basically
Of course.
60 million Orthodox Christians were massacred and killed and genocided in the Soviet Union, and that was from communism. And then if you look at Venezuela, Cuba, it's just completely destroyed those countries. Anytime communism has been tried, it's failed. As a it just doesn't work as a theology. Now there may be, I think you can look at, I mean, even China, Mao Zedong, so many of his people starved. Now look, China has, I don't know that much about that country. You'd know way more than me because you live there, obviously. Um,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't say they're even fully communist though, because they have some elements of capitalism in the way they do their market, right? So, but yeah, that'd be a great conversation to have another day.
I would love to.
That's
Yeah.
a big
Even
topic. So
if you want to do it as an episode, if we can just have it, like a cup of, what do you drink? Cup of root beer and just sit and have a talk about it. It would be awesome. But I know you're short of time right now, so it was actually such a pleasure to talk to you, man.
yeah, it was good talking to you, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. We can definitely do it again sometime. So it was cool hearing
of
your
course.
perspective. So
Yeah, let me know when the episode is out. I would love to post it everywhere,
okay,
invite more
yeah,
people to listen to it.
sweet, will do, man. Okay, thanks, Jorge, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Everybody who listened, we appreciate you. And till next time, Nauvoo Legion.